Welcome back to the Taxiway podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Fran Riordan and some of the news that has come up about him recently. Then we're going to be talking about the World Baseball Classic and the people who are going to be playing for their respective teams. And then we're going to be having a quick, very brief spring training recap. So please stay tuned as we dive further in. So welcome back to the Taxiway podcast. My name's Fabian, your lead ramp agent. Man, it has been a little bit of a hiatus, but if you're following me on X, I've been posting there occasionally. But if you enjoyed this episode of the Taxiway podcast, please follow and subscribe on YouTube and on Spotify. We also have a recently opened Facebook account. And we're going to see if we can try to get Instagram going. I've never used Instagram, but it's never too late to learn. So, let's get started. I am really excited. Especially this season, we're going to try to get some interviews in. We're going to be trying to get some really good pictures in. It's going to be a great season. And it's going to be a really great learning experience for me too. This is basically the first podcast that I've ever started. And honestly, the first YouTube channel that I've been extremely consistent with. I know it's only been 8 episodes, but I've been pretty good about posting every week, minus the 2 that I was away. But things happen, and here we are. So, first on the docket, we have Fran Riordan. So for those of you who do not know who Fran Riordan is the manager for the Las Vegas Aviators. Now, why are we going to be talking about him? Well, it was announced earlier this month that he will be returning as the Aviators manager for the 2026 season. And upon hearing that, I was pretty excited. Mostly because it turns out that Mr. Riordan is the manager with the most wins in Las Vegas history as for the ball club. And not only that, but he's coming back off of an incredible season. And it was a great season for him because, one, he led the Aviators back to their first playoff appearance since 2019. And, thankfully I was able to attend that game against the Sacramento River Cats. And it was a pretty good game. It was a heartbreaker, but pretty good game. And then second, he led the Aviators to their first PCL championship since 1988. So longer than I have been alive, the Aviators or the Stars or the Las Vegas 51s have not won the championship. And also, the third reason why his season was so great was because he won his third PCL Manager of the Year award. Now, no other Las Vegas manager has won the award 3 times, let alone 2 times. So he has already cemented himself in Las Vegas baseball history by the amount of success that he has. To keep this all in perspective, the last Las Vegas manager to win the award was Wally Backman back in 2014 when the Aviators were still going by the 51s and they were the affiliate of the New York Mets. And that's saying something. I mean, growing up, I would listen to, Wally Backman, and, he was able to take the 51s at the time to the playoffs. And, they didn't go far. They didn't win anything, but, it was pretty good. And, I enjoyed Wally Backman as manager, and I thought he did pretty well. But nowhere near the amount of success that Fran Riordan has had. And it's just amazing to see the kind of impact that he has on the players and just the ability to achieve success, to have that, trying to build that culture of success, especially when it comes to player development. And I understand that, when it comes to player development, the MLB team is not looking for their minor league teams to win championships. What they want is they want players who will be ready to play in the MLB. They want to have the players that will be comfortable and successful once they get to the next level. But I also think, like, as a fan, it's really good to see your minor league team being great, because I think that also, being in the playoffs, it also has its perks. I mean, when you're in a playoff environment, it doesn't matter if you're minor league. I mean, the stakes are still high for that franchise, and there's a dedicated fan base that will root for you and put the pressure on you. And so I think going to the playoffs has its perks, even in minor league, and just to see those guys celebrate when they won the PCL championship, it was amazing. And if you haven't seen the picture of them having a pool party afterwards, that was amazing. And returning with Fran Riordan will be his coaching staff, and rightfully so, because why would you change anything if these guys were doing pretty good? Paul Abbott and Dan Scholes will be returning as pitching coaches, Brian McArn as hitting coach, Kevin Kuzminoff as assistant hitting coach, Eric Fast, and, pardon me if I butchered that name, he will be returning as head athletic trainer. And same thing with Jake Routhier as athletic trainer. And I'm not sure if I mispronounced that one either. Then we have Stephen Thayer as sports performance coach. And excuse me if I butchered that one too. And so with this coaching staff, with this support staff, hopefully they can make another run for it. And seeing the young guys that are in the pipeline, I really do think that this team will go far again. So now transitioning on to the World Baseball Classic. Now the World Baseball Classic will be starting soon. I assume that when this video gets released, it'll be next week or in the next couple of days. But I am very excited. I was so excited that I went through each and every team roster, because I was so curious to see how many of these guys, how many of them have donned the Las Vegas Aviator jersey, the Las Vegas 51 jersey. Now I was expecting 5 to 7 max. But get this, guess how many of these guys were 51's Las Vegas alumni? 22. Can you imagine poring over hundreds and hundreds of names, countless hours of scouring these rosters, and I had to fill out information for 22 of these guys? Now, I could either torture you and go through each and every single name with their stats, or would you prefer that I had a little bit here and there with some highlights? Now, I guess, if I were a sadist, I would probably go through each of them and, make you suffer, but I am a kind person, and so we'll only go over a couple. Now, the first name that jumps out at me is Ruben Tejada, who will be representing Panama at shortstop. Now, as I was looking at his name, I was wondering, why does this guy sound so familiar? Why does he look so familiar? Because he played for the Las Vegas 51s in 2013. I remember seeing this guy's name up on that crusty old scoreboard. But here's another reason why I recognize that name. Now, for any of you Dodger fans, I assume you remember a little something called the Chase Utley rule. Now, for my Dodger fans out there, that happened during the 2015 NLDS, almost 10 years ago. Yeah, I know. Blink and it's already been 10 years. Now, for those of you who don't understand what the Chase Utley rule is, so for context, 2015 NLDS, Chase Utley is just one of those guys where he'll do anything for the team, right? He took one for the team. He went out of his way. He went out of his way to take out Ruben Tejada to break up a double play in order for a run to score. He broke up that double play, but as a result, Ruben Tejada ended up breaking his leg and missing the rest of the season. Now, it's not funny for Ruben Tejada, and a lot of people think that was a dirty play. And so you guys can put your opinions down in the comment section below. I will remain neutral, but that is where Ruben Tejada, where I remembered him. He's the guy who broke his leg by getting taken out by Chase Utley in the 2015 NLDS Mets versus Dodgers, and it was at Dodger Stadium, no less. Next person who jumped out at me is Seth Lugo. Seth Lugo, representing Team Puerto Rico. He's a right-handed pitcher, and he played for the 51s in 2015 through 2016, and in 2016 was his best season, 73 and a third innings pitched, over 21 games with a 6.5 ERA, 62 strikeouts. Now, the reason why I wanted to highlight him was because, he's, like I said, it's nostalgia. I remember seeing him in that 51's jersey, and, sometimes I wouldn't look forward to seeing him pitch, and I'm not sure if it was because of the defense that was behind him, or maybe he just had an off day or something, but I wouldn't look forward to seeing him pitch because some way or another, everything would just fall apart. Everything would just fall apart, and so it's just, I just like seeing Seth Lugo, and he's turned his career around, especially transitioning from a starter into a bullpen piece, and I'm not sure about last season, but I believe the season before, he was pretty shut down, and he transitioned well into his new role. Now, a couple of these other guys I'm highlighting are because they're pretty recent. For example, Darell Hernandez, he played for the 51s last season and representing Team Puerto Rico at third base, and he played for the Aviators both in 2024 and in 2025. And last season, he slashed 305, 383, and 424. And I am just so excited to see him play. I got to see him play a couple of times during spring training. He's barely getting started. Everything is going into motion, but he's a great young player, and there is a ferocious battle for third base. He's in the mix. Max Muncy's in the mix. Brett Harris is in the mix. There's just so many guys that are wanting that opportunity to play at third base, and so I hope that he can make something out of it and make it very competitive. Not to knock the other guys. I believe that anybody should have that opportunity. So we'll just see how spring training plays out. And so him being a young player, it'll be interesting to see how he can do this. And anything else, if he does well, he can solidify himself as a solid bench piece, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially for being a young player. Next we have is Carlos Cortez, also for Team Puerto Rico in left field, and he also played for the Aviators last season, slashing 322, 314, and 603. 17 home runs, and he only played half the season. Can you imagine that? So 17 home runs, he was really seeing the ball well, and not to mention, he was named the 2025 PCL All-Star. So that's pretty amazing. And now I also want to throw in this guy who appeared for only 4 games in 2023. However, this name might sound familiar. Mason Miller. Yeah, star closer. He appeared for the Aviators only 4 games in 2023. However, the brief appearance of Mason Miller was absolutely electric. Can you imagine in 4 games he only allowed 3 hits? 3 hits and 26 strikeouts. Nothing. He was absolutely dominant. Absolutely dominant. So I can assume that was the reason why they didn't want to keep him at AAA, because, I mean, with a performance like that, I mean, you're basically screaming that you're MLB ready. Why would they hold you back? We also have Denzel Clark playing for Team Canada, and we saw him during the playoffs, and so it's going to be exciting for him to see him play for Team Canada. He slashed .280, .430, and .411 with the Aviators, and he's an absolutely defensive wizard. Defensive wizard. I believe he got the Catch of the Year award last season, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see if he has any more web gems for us, and especially on the world stage at the World Baseball Classic. Next person I want to talk about is Luis Romero, representing Cuba, right-handed pitcher. Now, I bring up Romero because he was part of the inaugural team. He played for the Aviators from 2019 through 2020, and obviously excluding the pandemic season of 2020. And Luis Romero is the longest tenured with Las Vegas out of this whole bunch, with 4 seasons under his belt. His best season was in that inaugural season in 2019, where he had a .396 ERA and opponents only hitting .234 against him with 81 strikeouts. And finally, we're going to be covering Ahmed Rosario, representing Team Dominican Republic over at third base. I bring him up because he was with the Las Vegas 51s in 2017, and he did pretty well. .328, .367, and .466. And I can tell you, when I saw him play at Cashman Field, he was always pretty solid, right? And so I think he deserves to get a little shout out here. Now, I can post the entire list. Post the entire list over on my socials, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. All right, and so now we're going to be heading into our final segment, our spring training recap. So on February 21st versus the White Sox at Camelback Ranch, the Athletics lost 2-11. And it was kind of ugly, but it's you can understand it, because it's the first game of the year. The pitching wasn't too good, but Brian Serven, one of the newly acquired players on a minor league deal, playing catcher, he went 3 for 3 with 2 doubles and an RBI. He came in as a pinch hitter for Austin Wynns. Then on February 22nd, versus the Cleveland Guardians at Hohokam Stadium, the Athletics were shut out 6-0. Then on February 23rd, versus the Giants at Scottsdale Stadium, the Athletics lost 2-6. And the top performer for the Athletics was JT Ginn with 2 innings pitched with no hits allowed, with no runs allowed, and 3 strikeouts. And so over the past couple of games that I had looked over, I noticed that Tommy White, the Athletics number 7 prospect, has been consistently getting on base each game. And that's a really good sign, especially he went off during the Arizona Fall League, and now you're going into spring training, you're carrying that momentum. Time will only tell when he'll appear on the Athletics, or if they think that he can go from AA and start the season off at AAA. Who knows? But we will find out the final week of March. Perhaps the rosters will be finalized by then. But it's going to be a long spring. It's going to be a very fun spring with the World Baseball Classic in full swing. And as we go over spring training for the Athletics, I think it would be a nice segment to throw in how each country is doing during the World Baseball Classic. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll be keeping you updated. Another thing that I noticed about these games, sorry about that, just backtracking a little bit. The pitching hasn't been the best, the fielding hasn't been the best, but like I had stated before, it's very natural for teams to be a little sluggish coming back from break, but hopefully they can turn things around and we can see our former Aviators performing at a high level in spring. Hopefully they get those chances. Hopefully everybody can get their time to shine, to succeed, and one can only hope. So just as another closing remark, I am very excited about this season. I'm excited about this channel, excited about the podcast. We're going to see if we can get some interviews here, because my goal for 2026 is to grow this channel, to be a primary news source for all of the Aviator fans out there, whether you're a local of Las Vegas or just somebody who's interested and curious about the team. I hope to be the kind of channel that people can say, you know what, the Taxiway Podcast is where I go to get my Aviators news, where I like to get updates from the Athletics, because we'll be covering them too. And my hard goal for 2026 is to be able to consistently get quick interviews from the players, whether home or away. It's to be active at least once a week, giving you those game or series recaps, just so everybody can be in tune and plugged in with the team, because I believe that if we can grow this baseball fandom within Las Vegas, I think it's only a good thing. So my name's Fabian, your lead ramp agent. This has been the Taxiway Podcast. And if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't followed, please do so on Spotify and on YouTube. Follow me on my socials, on Facebook and on X. So this has been the Taxiway Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Farewell and Godspeed.